All right, welcome back to the show. At this time, we are joined by Alabama wide receiver Mac Hereford. Welcome to the show, Mac.
Thank you for having me. Really excited to be on.
Well, we appreciate you being with us, and I've been watching on Twitter. Even though you are quarantined right now, you are finding ways to work out creatively. And I guess when you're preparing and hopefully for next season, I guess that's part of the process, isn't it?
For sure. It's all about, I like to say it's a perfect time for college athletes, athletes in general, to really separate themselves because, at the college level, we don't have coaches right here on us telling us what to do all the time. And so it's going to, separate the guys who really want it and don't. And, if you really want it, you'll find a way, no matter how, weird or creative you have to get, you'll find a way to get it done.
Well, we know that you're a guy that's really dedicated, and for those who perhaps are not familiar with you, I think that's a theme they're going to see over your career is your dedication and your work ethic. Now, with that said, I want to talk a little bit about coming out of high school. Of course, you were at Woodbury Forest, a boarding school in Virginia, and you had other schools that were recruiting you, but you decided that you wanted to attempt to climb the biggest mountain in college football at the time, and that was joined to the Alabama Crimson Tide as a preferred walk on. So, my question for you is this, Mac. What was it about Alabama that would lead you to choose this route?
Well, I grew up in Birmingham, and my family had always loved the University of Alabama, and just grew up bleeding crimson. And it's all I wanted to do. I really can't remember a time I didn't want to be an Alabama football player. When I went to games or other things, I saw the way that I loved these players. I loved the stadium, the atmosphere, and I wanted to be someone who had that platform and ability to reach out to others and mean something to make a difference, and just really loved Alabama my whole life. And so when I was growing up, I decided that's what I was going to do. If my kindergarten teacher asked me what I wanted to be, it wasn't an NFL football player or pro football player. It was an Alabama football player. So just worked extremely hard, and when I had the opportunity given to me my junior year, decided that that was what I wanted to do, and didn't care what it was going to have to take, to be successful there. That's it's where I could be the greatest wide receiver I could be was Alabama.
Absolutely. Now, Mac, for those who are not familiar with the Preferred Walk On program, what it is that the coaching staff will look at you and believe that you could be beneficial to the program. However, for whatever reason, they don't have any scholarships available at that time. And so they'll give you a roster spot on the team. You don't have to try out, you don't have to go through that process. You're part of the roster. However, it's also more challenging in the fact that many times you've got to do twice as much just to get noticed. And so, my question for you is this: what have been some of the more challenging parts of being a preferred walk on at a program like the University of Alabama?
Yeah, just like you said, it's an interesting thing that I don't know if a lot of people know about. And you have these guys come in, and like you were saying, basically you're given a roster spot. You don't have to try out or anything like that. So I came in with the group my age in 2000, I think the summer of 16, with a really good class. And it's just the fact that you're less recruited in a way. You're not a scholarship guy, so these coaches haven't fully invested money in a way because of giving a scholarship into you. And so they're not necessarily trying to put you up in the depth chart as high as possible, or not trying to get you to learn the plays or help you learn the plays as fast as they want the guys they offer full scholarships to. And so you're constantly, as a preferred walk-on or walk-on in general, you're having to find ways to learn the plays. I remember sitting in my freshman year, TJ Simmons met with like a GA before all the 7-on-7s in the summer. And I didn't know about that, but I heard about it, and I just was sitting in the back and I would listen and try to learn. And so it's that little barrier that kind of just is tough to deal with. You're really having to basically prove that you're better than a scholarship guy when these scholarship guys are so good already. You're having to prove yourself better than them and make it noticeable. And that's really, really challenging to do as a guy that is not getting the opportunities or chances that some of these scholarship guys are getting.
It's really interesting because the preferred walk on program, which is a great program, but we talk about some of the challenges, but it's not like even everywhere else. Like when you're at Alabama and you're trying to look twice as good, the guys ahead of you are 4 and 5 stars, and they're not the low 4 stars, they're the high 4 star guys. So it really does, I think, bring out the best in you. And I'll say this, Mac, I think it's what makes some of the best coaches down the road. You think of a guy like Kirby Smart, a lot of people will talk about the influence that Saban had on him, and that absolutely that is true and has had an impact on his success in coaching so far. But I think a lot of it goes back to him being a walk on and knowing what it takes to get to the level you want to get to and the kind of sacrifice that it takes, that it doesn't come as easy as it does for some other guys.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And Dabo Sweeney as well was a guy who was a walk-on at Alabama.
Right.
And, he's a great head coach now. And the thing is, like, that's what it takes. Like, I can think of multiple times in just my career in general, I sacrificed a ton, whether it be social life, time with family, these other things, and never really, completely got the reward that I wanted to play as much as I did, but I sacrificed, what I thought I had to, if not more, to get there. And I think that's the kind of beauty to it, is that, maybe I didn't get to play as much as I did on the field, but I really learned a ton through that time of sacrifice and hard work and the journey of trying to get there, and experience, what it takes to get to that level. I think there's a bunch of things that will definitely help me down the road that I think are really special.
Once again, we're talking to Mac Hereford. He's been a wide receiver for the past several years at the University of Alabama. Now, Mac, I want to talk to you just a little bit about what it was like as you put in this work and you put in all of this labor and you finally get to come through the tunnel at the University of Alabama. You've got the Crimson Tide jersey on, this classic uniform. You're going through this tunnel into a stadium with 90 plus thousand fans. What was it like the first time that you were able to dress out and the first time that you were able to play for the Crimson Tide?
It's really hard to put into words. It was a very surreal experience. I mean, I can remember just looking at my jersey when I walked in the locker room and looking at my last name on it and just thinking to myself, like, there it is. Like it was countless
Right.
of hours in high school and junior high and younger, that I was just fighting and working for this goal and, dream of mine. And to see my name on there, it was crazy, because I know how much my family, it meant to them as well, being big Bama supporters. And then my dad's side, just my grandparents, how much, they had supported me in my football career, and just thinking like, wow, like I've really made it. And then getting, going out of the tunnel, I just like it. It's like it really, people say the word, it's like a dream, but it really was like a dream. I mean, you're seeing this just a massive stadium of all these fans, and you're smelling, all the funnel cake and like all the different stuff that is coming from the stands, and you're hearing all these people, and it's an experience unlike any other. And it was really gratifying as well, just knowing, a lot of the work I put in is paying off. Like this right here, this small experience could be all worth it. And it was just super special. I really can't put it into words how much it meant, but I'll tell you, it was an unbelievable experience I'll never forget.
Absolutely. Now, Mac, one thing I want to ask you about is what it was like being in a program that is run by Coach Nick Saban. I know that your daily interactions probably were not with Coach Saban, but to be in a program where so much excellence is required, what was it like being in that Alabama program under Coach Nick Saban?
It was an experience that, or a time that was pretty amazing. Most people in the world, most players in the world, and coaches would want to be, just people would want to be around or in that system. And the way he does things, he says these things about the process, about the doing things right. And it's not like he just says them. He does that. If players are late to meetings, like, they're getting an earful. It doesn't matter if you're the starting quarterback or the, third string kicker or whatever. Saban is going to give you an earful. He's going to make sure everyone's accountable, in every circumstance. And he wants everything just perfectly right. We didn't do things, until we got it right. We did it until we couldn't get it wrong. something he says all the time. Like it,
Wow.
just being under his mentoring and leadership was just stories and just tons of wisdom that I was able to get, and will have for the rest of my life. It's pretty unbelievable um, opportunity.
Once again, we're talking to Mac Hereford, who has been a wide receiver for the past 4 years at the University of Alabama. Now, Mac, we've talked a little bit about the difficulty of being a preferred walk on. I believe that's probably, and I want to get your opinion on this and your experience on this. I feel like it's probably been more difficult because the Alabama coaching staff has had so much turnover the last few years, especially on the offensive side of the football. And as a preferred walk on, how difficult was it to have to try to impress new coaches when that type of turnover and change happens?
It's extremely difficult, and at times it can be frustrating because of the fact that it's a preferred walk on. I guess you could say like the way you make it or get in eventually is you just prove that you're a workhorse. You work extremely hard. You prove that you're loyal to the program. You're sacrificing constantly, and so I might could do that, and one wide receiver coach might see it, and then he's gone, and then the new wide receiver coach he might not be required to have meetings with walk-ons, but required to have them with scholarship guys. So he's meeting the scholarship guys first, and I have to make an effort maybe to go upstairs and introduce myself and let him put a name with a face, and then I have to talk to him daily. Whereas he's already almost connected with these guys when he comes in. The scholarship guys who are already there, he almost is connected with them, or like earlier on. And so it was just really tough. I mean, I can remember I think it was the end of my sophomore year going into junior year. We had Gaddis, Coach Gaddis, who's now the OC at Michigan. He had a lot of trust in me, and I got to start in the spring game with Mac Jones, and we ended up doing well. But the next season, when a new wide receiver coach comes in, it's a whole different story. I mean, I'm put back in in kind of the back of the depth chart, and I'm not really known as well. I had to, reestablish who I am and my name. And so, it's a little repetitive doing that over and over again. And like you're saying, it can get pretty hard and pretty frustrating.
Absolutely. Now, Mac, you do have 1 year of eligibility remaining. And so, my question for you is this: as far as football goes, what are your future plans?
So I graduated in December from Alabama and played 4 years there. And just like we've talked about, it's an unreal experience. And but it's time that I'm looking to go somewhere different from my grad school and take what I've learned from the Alabama program and all the things that Coach Saban's taught me, as well as other coaches, and go make an impact somewhere else. And so I'm talking to a couple of schools, and it's a little hectic right now with all going on, and knowing not knowing too much what's going to happen next season. But I'm thinking I'm going to finish out my next year, my last year of eligibility, somewhere else, and try to make an impact and get on the field a little bit more. So we'll see where I end up.
Once again, we're talking to former Alabama wide receiver Mac Hereford. Mac, I want to ask you about a guy that you are familiar with, another Mac, and that's Mac Jones, a guy who I believe is vastly underrated and sometimes underappreciated. And I get it when you've got a guy like Bryce Young getting ready to come to Tuscaloosa who has so much talent and it's going to be an absolute star at the next level. It's easy to look past Mac Jones, perhaps, but as good as Bryce Young is, I believe that Mac Jones is going to be the starter next season, and I believe he's going to have a big, big year. I mean, you think about what he was able to do in games like against Auburn on the road, against Michigan. People will bring up the two interceptions, but the reality is he threw one bad pass. The other was really a fluke play, but outside of those two passes, really played well. And so I want to get your opinion. I think that not only is Mac Jones going to be the starter, but Mac Jones is going to be a star next season in the top two or three in the league in passing and touchdowns. What is your opinion of Mac Jones, and is he ready to be the starter at Alabama?
I 100% think so. It's a good question because I have a strong opinion on it. I mean, I've this guy Mac Jones came in and immediately, we were friends off the bat, and because he wanted to throw, we were both gym rats, but in football sense, we would constantly want to throw. You would throw routes to me anytime, 10 o'clock, 12 at night, 1 at night, and anytime during the day. And it wasn't just with me. He would throw with me. He would throw with Shavers. He would throw with Ruggs, Judy, all these other guys. He would be throwing with them all the time. And it's been cool seeing him develop, in his time at Alabama, because he's truly, in my sense, he's a guy who's had a little bit of a path like, a preferred walk-on in a sense, because he hasn't been the starter, but he's been just grinding and grinding, and he's been working his tail off, and had minor setbacks here and there. But he's just a warrior, and I really think he is ready. And I can't tell you, what will happen when the season comes around, but my guess is that Mac Jones will start and he'll lead the team to a great season, just because he's a guy who's been there for years. He's got a great arm. He's smart. He's getting bigger and more built. It's like he's had all this time, and it's kind of like, the product is ready to get out there. And I really believe in him. I think that he will just do a great job. I can't express that enough, how hard he works, and just he's a great guy and a great leader. And I think that, people will see that this year for sure.
Absolutely. And not to sound like a broken record, but I am amazed with what he was able to do last year on the road when you consider he had to go against an Auburn defense that everybody was raving about, then a Michigan defense that everybody was talking about. He threw for 335 yards against Auburn and 4 touchdowns, and then turned around and had success against Michigan as well, throwing for 327 yards and 3 touchdowns against two really good defenses on the road. I mean, I really believe he's a player that's not getting enough credit for the success that he had in a difficult situation last season.
Exactly. And I mean, another point that is, not brought up a lot is we had Jalen Hurts and Tua, two
Right.
amazing, two of the best quarterbacks, in my opinion, and leaders in the country. And Mac Jones did he transfer? Nope. He stuck it out. I mean, he was not afraid of the battle. He was not afraid of being there and, waiting his turn. And there's got to be a lot to say for that, because you have guys who, come in as freshmen, they don't start or whatever. They're out. They're gone. And Mac Jones just stuck it out. Like, he really just battled it out and stayed with the program. And I mean, I like to say he's like a man for the people in a sense.
Once again, we're talking to Mac Hereford, Alabama wide receiver. Now, Mac, even though you're not going to be at Alabama next season, I know a lot of our listeners on the radio and our viewers on the Dr. SEC TV network are going to want to continue to follow your career. What is the best way they can follow you on social media?
For sure. I really appreciate y'all having me on, and everybody out there listening. I hope y'all are doing well and are safe and okay. And if y'all are looking to follow me and, continue watching my career, my media on Twitter or Instagram is MAC_HEREFORD, Mac Hereford. So if you want to stay in tune or in touch with what I'm doing, that's where you'll find me.
Well, Mac, we appreciate so much you coming on the show, and we know you've got some big decisions ahead of you. But when you make that decision, we'd like for you to come back on the Dr. SEC TV network and just let us know about what that decision is. And again, we look forward to following the rest of your career.
Would love to do that, and I really appreciate y'all having me on. I hope everybody out there is staying safe, and thank you so much.